The strike came without warning. In the early hours of the morning, explosions lit the sky over Iran. Within minutes, one of the country's most powerful military figures was dead. Across the region, alarms sounded. Fighter jets were scrambled. Oil markets surged before sunrise. And in Washington, Tel Aviv, and Tehran, leaders faced a question that could shape the future of the Middle East. This was not just another covert operation, it was a message. For years, tension between the United States, Israel, and Iran has simmered beneath the surface. Proxy battles, sanctions, cyber attacks, shadow wars that rarely made global headlines. But this moment feels different, direct, personal, dangerous. Because when top Iranian leaders, including Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Ali Shamkhani, Abdulrahim Musavi, Aziz Nasirzadeh, Mohammad Pakpour, and Saleh Assadi are killed and strategic sites are struck, retaliation is not a possibility, it is an expectation. And if retaliation comes, the consequences could ripple far beyond the region. What triggered the attacks? The tension did not explode overnight. It built slowly, quietly, through years of confrontation. Israel has long viewed Iran's nuclear ambitions and regional expansion as an existential threat. Iranian-backed militias in Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen have surrounded Israel with pressure points. Each rocket launch, each drone strike, each weapons shipment added fuel to a growing fire. Behind the scenes, Oz intelligence agencies tracked movements, mapped facilities, and monitored leadership networks. According to regional reports, the recent strikes targeted strategic infrastructure, military compounds, IRGC command centers, sites allegedly linked to missile production and nuclear research. From Israel's perspective, this was preemptive defense. From Iran's perspective, it was aggression. The United States, while not always publicly leading the charge, has provided intelligence, diplomatic cover, and military support in the region. Washington's role is calculated, measured, but unmistakable. The question now is simple. Was this meant to deter Iran or provoke a response that reshapes the balance of power entirely, especially after the deaths of Khamenei and other top commanders? The killing of a top Iranian leader. The death of Iran's senior leaders is not just symbolic, it is strategic. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, has ultimate control over Iran's military and political decisions. Ali Shamkhani, Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, coordinated long-term strategy. Abdulrahim Musavi, Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, oversaw military operations. Aziz Nasirzadeh, Minister of Defense, managed defense planning. Mohammad Pakpour, Commander of the IRGC, led the most elite paramilitary force. Saleh Assadi, Head of Military Intelligence, controlled critical operational information. Their removal disrupts command structures and sends a signal that even the most protected figures are vulnerable. Inside Iran, such strikes fuel public outrage and strengthen hardline voices. Retaliation becomes not only a military calculation, but a political necessity. History has shown that targeted killings rarely end conflicts. They often deepen them. For Israel and the United States, eliminating these figures may weaken short-term coordination among Iran's allies. Yet it also raises the stakes dramatically. When leaders of this caliber fall, the pressure to respond rises immediately, and responses rarely remain contained. What is the US goal? For Washington, this conflict is not only about Israel, it is about leverage, deterrence, and control. The United States has spent decades building alliances and military infrastructure across the Middle East. Allowing Iran to expand unchecked would weaken that entire structure. One core objective is preventing Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. American officials argue that a nuclear-armed Iran would destabilize the region overnight, triggering an arms race among Gulf states and permanently altering the balance of power. Another priority is protecting shipping lanes. The Strait of Hormuz carries a significant portion of the world's oil supply. Any disruption there would shock global markets within hours. The United States Navy maintains a strong presence in the Gulf for precisely this reason. There is also the broader strategy of deterrence. By supporting Israeli operations and signaling readiness, Washington aims to convince Tehran that escalation would come at a high cost, but deterrence is a delicate strategy. If it fails, the next move may not be limited or controlled, especially after the elimination of Iran's top military and political leadership. On to countries at risk right now, the conflict in Iran has set off alarms across the entire Middle East. Israel remains the immediate flashpoint, but the reverberations extend far beyond its borders. In Lebanon, Hezbollah maintains close ties to Tehran and could act in retaliation. Even small-scale attacks from Lebanon could destabilize the northern front. Syria continues to host Iranian military operations and proxy groups. Any escalation risks drawing Damascus into open conflict or creating new battle zones in urban areas where civilians are trapped. Iraq faces a similar threat. Iranian-backed militias operate there, and clashes with US or coalition forces could erupt at any moment. Yemen is another hotspot. The Houthi movement has been a proxy for Iran, threatening Red Sea shipping and regional trade routes. Escalation in Yemen would endanger international commerce and increase humanitarian crises. The Strait of Hormuz remains the most sensitive point. Even minor disruptions could block global oil shipments, sending prices soaring. The Middle East is a network of fragile alliances, and a single misstep could ignite widespread violence. Each country now balances between self-preservation, allegiance, and the risk of becoming the next battlefield. Global consequences. The conflict between the US, Israel, and Iran is no longer regional. The world is feeling the shockwaves. Global oil markets have already reacted. Any disruption in Iran or the Strait of Hormuz directly affects the flow of crude oil. Prices have surged, threatening inflation and increasing energy costs for millions worldwide. Stock markets are jittery, with investors weighing the risk of escalation against supply chain disruptions. Countries heavily dependent on Middle Eastern oil from Europe to Asia brace for rising costs. Shipping insurance rates have also spiked, making international trade more expensive. Beyond economics, there are strategic consequences. Russia and China are monitoring the situation closely. Their responses, from diplomatic support to potential arms deals, could shift global alliances. NATO and the United States must now calculate not only regional outcomes, but global reactions. The ripple effect extends to food security, energy-dependent industries, and geopolitical stability in Africa and Asia. And what begins as a conflict over nuclear and military control in Iran can cascade into a worldwide crisis. The world watches as every strike, every move, and every statement carries the potential to reshape international power balances and global economies. Could this escalate into a larger war? The danger now is not confined to Iran's borders. Every action carries the risk of triggering a wider regional war. Proxy groups in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen are already on high alert. A single missile or miscalculated strike could ignite full-scale conflict. The line between a controlled strike and uncontrolled escalation is thin. Israel has sophisticated defense systems, but even they cannot eliminate every threat. The US military presence in the Gulf serves as both a deterrent and a potential flashpoint. Any misstep could draw major powers into direct confrontation. Diplomatic channels remain open, but trust is fragile. Back-channel communications are ongoing. Yet each side interprets moves through decades of mutual suspicion. Worst-case scenarios are sobering. Regional war could disrupt global oil supplies permanently. Civilian casualties could spark humanitarian crises across multiple countries. The stakes are existential, not just political. In this volatile environment, every decision is magnified. The world waits, tense and uncertain, for what may come next. Conclusion: the conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran has already shaken the Middle East and the world. The killing of top Iranian leaders, including Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Ali Shamkhani, Abdulrahim Musavi, Aziz Nasirzadeh, Mohammad Pakpour, and Saleh Assadi, the strikes on strategic sites, and the heightened threat across multiple countries mark a pivotal moment in history. Oil prices, global markets, and regional alliances are all in flux. As tensions continue to rise, the possibility of escalation cannot be ignored. Every action, every response, and every calculation carries consequences that extend far beyond borders. The world watches, uncertain, as the Middle East teeters on the edge of a conflict that could redefine global power and security.